What's going on, people? It's Mr. Dore back again with another podcast. I hope everyone's fit and well. And yes, we want to talk about yesterday's game that ended Nottingham Forest 2, Manchester United 2. We scored goals at last. And like I said, a lot to talk about. So if people, if you want to get involved in the chat, please do hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and get involved in the chat as well. A massive shout out to my sponsors as well, to Adam Hollage and Far and Wide, the kindly sponsoring my channel till the rest of the season. So make sure you follow my sponsor as well. Right, let's get the panel in. I don't know where he's gone. So we're going to start with the Walsh man. Walsh, Steve. How do you, Steve?
You right, Ben? You're not too bad. You right, Glenn?
Very well, thanks. Good.
Good. Yeah, good. Yeah, plenty to talk about. And I like it when you get me on for these shows about Man United because you know how much I love them, Ben.
Oh, days. Next up, we've got the man himself, Glenn. How you doing, Glenn?
Yeah, very well. Bit of a late night drive back last night. Didn't really know what was going on when I saw lots of ambulances and blue lights flashing around Cambridge area, but obviously since then I found out. Yeah, I'm well. Looking forward to this hour.
Good. And last but not least, we've got the man himself, Des. How you doing, Des?
I'm okay. A few sound issues again. I don't know why every time I log in I keep not being able to hear you when you go live. But anyway, yeah, I'm okay. Just like Glenn says, thoughts go out to those guys on the train, Stephen and many others, and hopefully they make a speedy recovery. A bit touch of class again from the club today, in the sense that Mr. Marinakis is offered to help the best he can, which is where he really comes to the fore, isn't it? In this kind of work. And yeah, I think we just need to sort of touch on that and wish those guys a really, really speedy recovery. And, sort of realise how brave they were in what actions they took.
100%. Like I said,
Can I add to that as well?
Yes, Glenn.
Having read around it today, obviously the situation is still up in the air and it's horrendous. But by all accounts, the communication between the driver and the guys on the track side brought the train off of the main line and into Huntington, which, if anybody's ever been from Nottingham to Wembley or anywhere that side, how quick the train is moving, and the quick actions of the driver and the signallers and others around there brought it into Huntington where they could manage it. Although I believe the train stopped, pull cables were being pulled. Obviously, the driver had to override that and move it in somewhere off the main line into somewhere where they could get help. So that no doubt that quick action and the decision that they made has no doubt helped the situation not being as serious as perhaps it might have been.
100%. And like I said, I just want to spot on what Des and like Glenn said, Mr. Marinakis as well. You can love him or hate him. And he's actually he did a message on the club website and said he'll pay for everything that what's happened. And like I said, that's why you got a good owner in Marinakis. He likes to take care of the fans who support Forest. And like I said, Stephen hopefully get a massive recovery for his bravery, like what he did. And to all the family members that he's helped out as well. So massive shout out to Stephen Kuhn as well. Right, so I'm going to get through. Like I said, we're going to talk a lot about the game. Like I said, Forest 2, Man U 2. And before we do, let's go through the show again. Late again, mate. Yeah, this guy, Des. He's always late. He's always late. Merkin, how you doing, Chris? Hope you're well. Hi, Dore. Point yesterday. Let's build on it. Keep on the great work. Come on, work on the pod. Thank you, Chris. He's always a legend, Chris. Always legend from the day. KT, thank you for the lift. Thank you as well because the tram went a different way and she kindly dropped me off in Borwell and my sisters. So Katie and Jackson, thank you very much for dropping me off home yesterday. Colin, if you want to be like Colin, people, be a member to the channel, please do as well. Right. Let's talk about yesterday's game. Who wants to start? Steve, Glenn, Des. Who wants to start? No, Des go. Let Dylan go first. Let Dylan go first. I don't know why I said Dylan. Dylan, do you want to go first, or do you want to carry on reading your book?
You can't hear it anyway, Ben Dore.
Well, and before we do as well, good evening, chaps. See you in Glasgow. Matthew Mitchell. absolutely legend, man. Absolutely legend. Yes, we'll be getting glasses. Well, me and Des will be there as well. So shout out to Matt, absolutely legend. Right, no, Des, you're going last, Des. You talk too much. People in the chat, you know what? I'm afraid Des is the boss. There's one guy came to my, was it last week? I said, I love Des. He always like talks so much sense, but so much long, but it makes sense. So this is why Des is going last. And Kate as well. She's a fan of you, Des, as well. So, but you just talk too much. But it's good to talk too much. Right, Glenn, we'll start with you, Glenn. You was there yesterday. What's your thoughts on the game, the whole of it?
First 15 minutes, obviously much of a muchness. Concerned about Douglas Luiz going off. But Yates came on and within 2 or 3 touches seemed to be annoying Anderson a little, but overall playing it backwards and not playing to him. But seemed to be an ideal substitute of that situation. Obviously, we don't want Douglas Luiz having injuries or anything like that. And until the error, and no doubt we'll discuss it, we seem to be, keeping possession and making some really inroads into their midfield and actually trying to play football against that, that team that over the last sort of 6 or 7 games seems to have picked up results against teams in similar positions to us, if not teams who are slightly higher up the league. So I was worried going in, although I did say 1-0. I am delighted that actually, in hindsight, that we got something out of that game. If only we'd have held on that little bit longer and got something out of that last sort of 10, 15 minutes to Callum Hudson-Odoi going through, for example, would have given us a bit of a buffer. But overall, I think the performance was improved. I think there's some highlights in terms of Savona's defensive play, who was much better, and obviously his goal. Lovely to see Gibbs White on the score sheet, and generally just a really improved, I'm not going to say good, improved team performance overall.
Well, Steve, what's your thoughts on the game?
Bit gutty we didn't win. First of all. First, I'd say that I agree with Glenn. It was first 15, 20 minutes was quite cagey. Nothing really happened. And then, obviously, the goal came. And then they slightly had their tails up a little bit going to half-time. But then second half, we just came out. Clearly, Dyche got stuck into him half-time. Was a bit of a loss losing Luiz. But like Glenn said, Yates came in and, does what Yates does. He was frustrating Anderson, because a few times Anderson chewed his ear off.
Yes, he did.
He did, yeah. But that's the expectation gone up now, isn't it? He's, I use this term loosely, but Anderson's ego is going to get bigger now with him being linked to all these big clubs and England caps and so on. So he wants to demand the ball more. So his expectations are getting higher now. So you can see on the pitch, Anderson is stepping above these, he's a step above, I should say, sorry, that, he's demanding the ball. He's outstanding there, still tracking back, picking up the loose balls. The back four looked a bit more solid. Again, Savona, Nico, outstanding again. Yes, we conceded from corners, but we'll get to that. But yeah, overall, Ben, I think it was probably the best performance in the Premier League. Obviously, we've had some decent in the Europa, but in the Premier League, it's probably our best performance for some time. We looked like the old, like Aussie Dave said in the group chat, it reminded him of Forest, like maybe 2 seasons ago. I don't know which way he was meant by that, but I could see what he meant, maybe regarding the way we set up and the way we try to hit it on the counter. Hudson-Odoi was tucking in very centrally when he yesterday, which I found quite unique. He had a couple of chances to shoot, which I was getting a bit frustrated with, which I think he should have let. He did have one strike that went wide, but yeah, overall, Ben, I thought, yeah, they're 100% better than we have been recently, of course. So we're going to take that into the Leeds game now, and which we get to later, I'm sure.
100%. Next up, we've got the man himself, Des. What was your thoughts, my friend?
Much improved, wasn't it? That's the big thing to take away from it, and I think we started off really well. Man U started bright as well. It was a little bit end to end for 10 minutes, and then I felt we took a little bit control of the game. I felt we was the side in the ascendancy. As Glenn touched on, the big loss in Louise, who was playing really well, I thought. He was actually having a really good game. It didn't affect us too much. Of course, the moment of controversy, which I'm still fuming about. I probably not got over it yet.
I haven't even does. I haven't.
They always get those kind of decisions, and nothing ever changes. And I harped all the way back to 1990.
Oh, I seen it. Who was it? Mark Robbins.
And then the goal was kind of inevitable, wasn't it? The goal to concede, it happened at Bournemouth. Although we weren't very good at Bournemouth and we got exactly what we deserved, I felt it was unjust, and it just feels like everything's going against us, and it felt like a team struggling at the bottom of the league, and that's what it was. And what was most pleasing was the reaction. Obviously they felt it was unjust, and hopefully Dice had got into them and revved them up a little bit, and they come out and scored those 2 quick goals. And then I was just we could have scored more. I'm thinking of the Callum Hudson-Odoi one where we shot from a little distance. It was a little bit unlucky, but we could have and should have perhaps added to it before they got a bit more of a foothold in the game later on, as they're always going to do. I just felt it felt to me overall that they'd started working off some of the manager's plans. There was a couple of very, very straightforward passes in the first half that weren't really on and didn't really work out, but you could tell the players are being told to pass it forward, pass it forward, pass it forward. Even Yatesy, when he comes on, instead of 2-3 touches, he was trying to get it and pass it first time. So that's the most pleasing aspect of it, is that they seem to be responding to a week's worth of hard training. Of course, take the decisions out of it. And I think we would have been good value had we held on. They scored a good goal at the end. Again, we should defend it better, but the finish is excellent. And of course, there's that decision as well, which has not been picked up on, the handball. Any other team, again, that's where my frustration comes from, because any other team, it would have been called out. But of course, if it happens to Manchester United, then it doesn't get called out, in free play. So, yeah, I think it was a good performance. It wasn't. It's not going to change the course of the season on its own. We need to build on it. We need to sort of take the positives and hopefully score a few goals and start keeping clean sheets, because this issue from corners is becoming a bit too much of an issue. And if we sort that out and sort of stiffen up a little bit, I think we'll start moving forward a lot quicker than we have done so far.
We've got to talk about it. the corner. That's you, Glenn, because we can all moan about it should have been a corner, blah blah blah. We all know it shouldn't have been, but like Des just said, we need to sort defending, because if this carries on, then we are going to be in massive trouble. But it was just poor from the referee, wasn't it? Because we could, like I said, it happened last week, but we can't just stop. We need to stop blaming on these decisions the referee is doing. Like, defend. Defend. That's what we do, don't we, Glenn?
I was thinking about it on the drive back down last night, actually. The Forest defensive strategy and setup of last season would have almost certainly, you can't be sure, managed and dealt with the error that was caused by a linesman on the far side, on the Brian Clough stand side, seeing a ball, what's the width of a pitch? 50 metres? 35, 40 metres away from them, along a sideline, whether they then call it on and off. Des and I talked about it last night, didn't we, Des? In terms of Savona's first movement was to play the ball onto or just inside the line, so he kept it in. Regardless of that, we had the situation at Bournemouth last week where the defensive setup isn't good enough for corners, and they almost have this: the world's against us. Why have you made that poor decision? And then go to sleep and just shut down in terms of how to defend that. Then the corners that's then caused. We just need to be better at that, and that's the one thing that's gonna be, the situation in the last 5 or 6 games of last season where we ran out of steam, we had injuries in key positions, and teams found us out, and in the end, we then got nothing out of the last sort of 5 or 6 games that meant we got Champions League spot in the final game, etc. We've been found out in game week 6, and this is 10 now, with the situations where we've conceded very, very easy goals, very cheap goals. Particularly the first goal, where Casemiro didn't really do very much else in the game. Des and I were talking about this yesterday, right? He didn't do very much else except walk onto across from a corner that wasn't particularly well defended at all. The second half, where I was in the Upper Bridgeford, you could definitely see them being far more organised, and Murillo's off the line. Just as it was last year, makes me feel a little bit more optimistic about moving forward, and they've got some way of defending and putting a strategy together, because that's the one thing that we need to do. If all we do is reduce the number of opportunities where they get across from a corner or from a set piece. We've had situations, haven't we, issues with free kicks as well in those sorts of areas. We've got to get it sorted out, and we've got to do it as quick as possible. The one thing that as I said, that little green shoot of hope is that in the second half, with the exception of the second ball drop and the fantastic, volley, we cleared our lines and prevented the ball going into Sells. On Sells's note, you might have noticed this in the first half, Dore, where Sells was at your end, at Trent end. It might not have come up on the screen. He's got a real heavy strapping on his right hamstring. Whether that's affecting his ability to move across. Yeah, he's got some tape, black tape, underneath his short line, inside his butt, on the inside of his right hamstring. For most of the first half, when the ball was at the Trent end, he was in a low squat and doing side to side sort of stretches. There was a situation where he clipped his foot probably about 75 minutes, and the ball had trickled out for a goal kick, and he looked in real difficulty walking up that little bank onto the edge of the pitch there. And the ref came over and asked if he was all right. Whether that's got anything to do with it and Angus Gunn's injury, I don't know. I'm just speculating that Sells might not be as fit as we want, and certainly his ability to jump and punch at those sorts of set pieces may have a small issue. Now, Des and I have spoken in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks about marginal gains, these minute little things that make a difference. It may or may not be a factor. But if you've got a defensive 5 or 6 around the edge of the 6-yard box at a corner, and you know that your keeper is less mobile than they would have been when they won the Golden Glove. Remember, 10 games in, still no clean sheets. It may be a problem that they can't necessarily fix very quickly. Defensively, though, they've got to get this sorted out, because teams know now our frailties in those sort of situations, and it can't be something that we allow a goal or 2 every game, because we're always going to score 3, aren't we? No, we're not. So that can't happen. That can't happen.
100%. People, if you can, do a massive favor, please do hit the like button if you can, and make sure everyone follows everyone's socials, like Des does his before and after reactions as well on social media. So if you can, and follow Glenn and Steve, but he's not on nothing. So but yeah, he's a joke. Let's talk about the goals, man. Let's start with you, Steve Gibbs-White, because he's been given lots of criticism with his shooting, but his heading, it's so much better in it when it's heading. I know Des is giving me a bit of a little look, evil look there, but his heading is so good in it. It's so good in it, Steve, when he scores his heading goals.
Yeah, I think his heading is better than his shooting from 30 yards, because Gibbs-White can't shoot from 30 yards, Gibbs-White. But when he scored, I actually just sat there in shock. I didn't even jump up. I just sat there like we've actually scored a goal. And then when the second one went in, I definitely jumped up then. Because it was such a quick fire double. But Yeah, the goal, I think, it was well speculated in during the week, with his interview about Man United and so on. But people forget that Anderson was in the Newcastle end when they
Exactly.
beat
You know what?
Liverpool.
That wound me up,
You
It
know,
wound me up so
yeah,
much.
look, at the end of the day, look, if people are naive to think these footballers don't have a soft spot for other clubs, I know we've got to be careful what you do say because we live in this world now where people are sensitive to what they hear. But I mean, it's like I just took it with a pinch of salt. I was just like, all right, he's talking about Man United. He wasn't wishing them to win the league, or he just talking about. We always back on, don't we, about on these videos about the media and the way they question these footballers. They were clearly just going to tap into what he thought about Man United. He just give what he thought. But yeah, it was a well taken goal. They were suspect at the back as well. We can go on about us, but they were suspect as well. If you look at that Gibbs White goal, Euro turns his back. I mean, if Milenkovic and Murillo did that, we'd be crucifying them. So, as far as we were quite bad, every time we had a corner, we looked threatening. We hardly ever looked threatening as well from set pieces. So, but I agree with Glenn. I mean, touch it slightly going back to what we were talking about. We have to sort out the other end as well because every time a team gets a corner, now you've got to throw in as well. Pardon the pun. You've got to put into throw-ins now as well because corners and throw-ins are getting more and more. In teams' arsenals now, in the attacks, they just use them more and more. And like Glenn said, if teams now are watching videos on us, which they obviously do, Forest got a weakness there. Let's just try and get as many corners as we can. Because every time there's a corner, I'm just like biting my nails and thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen from this corner? I mean, the one, correct me if I'm wrong, but the chance that Murillo cleared off the line, wasn't that from a set piece as well? Wasn't that from a corner? Because didn't Sells punch it?
Yeah.
Or was
It
that, yeah.
might have come from a cross on the Clough side.
Yeah, it was
was it a cross? Was it?
It was a cross.
I believe so.
I think it was.
But but that being said, if it was a cross, why was Hamed that side? Because Hamed was playing right wing, wasn't he?
No, it was a corner. It was a corner, wasn't it?
Was it?
It was definitely a corner. Yeah,
I think it was a corner.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. So again, but yeah, the second goal came from a cross. So we shown we can, from cross as well which obviously what Dyche could be tapping into as well. We got to look. We got to start being more threatening at the end as well, Ben, from set pieces. And I mean, our free kicks and corners got to get better at either end. I feel we got to start attacking more. Attacking these corners and free kicks better. And at the other end, we got to tighten up as well. But yeah, just touch on your point about Gibbs White. Well taken. Hopefully that will silence a few people now going forward. Because again, it's just like you said with this week about all the thing about Man United. Who cares? As long as he scored, I don't care, to be honest with you.
Did you see Gibbs White's celebration though, Steve?
Yeah,
he did the Hudson-Odoi versus Chelsea one.
Oh,
yeah.
yes,
No knee slides.
Let me ask Des this because like Ryan Yates, like I said, he's been criticising a lot. And when Douglas Luiz got injured, I thought, oh, here we go again, injured. And I can't believe he come on before Sangari, if I'm honest. But he come on, Des.
I can, Ben. I can.
No, but
because he's there to rattle Fernandez.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. That's what he did, and that's what I think I love about Yates because he come on and he did what he did, and I thought he made it like a massive impact. Definitely second coming on, and like I said, we saw Anderson bollocking a few times, but Dad, he's come on, and I can't believe he made the assist. That was a great. I kept shouting. I think he should stop doing set pieces now for Yates because it's a great ball in. But Dad, what have you got right in when he come on? Do you think? Do you think now? I know, like we don't know how long Luiz is up for. Do you think he's the guy now to be that number 6 now, or do you think Dominguez, Gibbs White drop into number 8? Anderson, what do you think, Des?
Look, Ryan Yates will always be. I use this phrase a lot about him. He'll always be a horse for a course. There'll always be a situation that suits Ryan Yates in the team. I think it's no coincidence, and people will jump down my throat that when he's not played so much, Forest have started to struggle. He has to feature in games. He has to be a part. whether it's starting certain games or whether it's coming off the bench like he did yesterday and making a difference. We all knew the impact he was going to have on Fernandes as soon as he come on. And he was throwing his toys about, pulling his shirt around, moaning at the referee all afternoon because he didn't like it. But I think what you get with Ryan Yates is and it's what I touched on before about the players starting to adapt to Sean Dyche, starting to pick up some of the things. If there's a listener in that Forest team and somebody who's going to take orders, try and develop as a footballer, try and be that little bit better and fit into what the manager wants and what the team now expects, it's going to be Ryan Yates, isn't it? Always taking that information on board. And like I said, there was times, yes, Anderson got frustrated, but there were times when he was releasing the ball a lot quicker. The assist, it wasn't a worldie of a cross, but he did what he had to do. He put the ball in, and that's that seemed to be direct instruction from the manager, of moving that ball quickly, getting on it, breaking play up initially. So there's absolutely a reason for him to be there, and I think that the thing with Ryan Yates is it's just the energy he brings to the pitch. I don't know why he just steps on the pitch and there's a lot more energy about Forest. I know he's not technically the best player in the world. He's not Douglas Luiz, but it's the way that then Forest just respond, the crowd responds, the place lifts a little bit. The team is a bit quicker in what they do. And I know they have to compensate for Ryan Yates at times, but I just think in such a game, where at times they were going to have possession, they've got good attacking players, we were going to have to defend. But in the midfield, I felt it was a place yesterday where we could, and we did, really, really dominate. Casemiro didn't have a kick apart from the header, which makes that bit even more frustrating. But he never had a kick because Forest in that midfield was all over them. What Yates did better than anybody yesterday was swing a crossover first time. Because after those 2 goals, we never put another ball in the box. We're talking about Forest deficiencies, and the things that are letting us down in terms of defending. United can't defend for toffee. So what we had to keep doing, and we didn't, and this was slightly frustrating, although we created chances in other ways. We should have just kept swinging that ball in at every opportunity. First time, get the ball over like Yates did, like they did for the next goal, which then found its way to Savona, who knocked one in. And I think if they'd have carried that on, and sort of used that example of Yates and trying to get that ball forward quickly, like they were in the first half, it was a bit more sort of direct passing in terms of, like I say, straight lines through the midfield. Wasn't always on. I just felt if they'd have got the ball wide a bit and got it in quick, and it never really happened. Look, we can talk about defending all day. The problem with football, full stop, in this modern day is no one can defend. Nobody can defend. Nobody can head the ball anymore. What happened to the likes of John Terry and Sol Campbell? There's just this obsession with playing out from the back, and nobody can really defend. Yes, we found a way last season, with those defenders. And just to touch on 1 or 2 of those points quickly before we move on, Sells, people are talking about Sells and what he's not doing. He was never ever the best on crosses. What he did do last season, he dug us out on lots and lots of occasions where just simply worldy saves. A lot of those results could have been the other way if he'd not done his bit, and he's not doing them. It's just the way it's falling to some degree. He's not doing them. I don't put any blame on him. It's just not falling that way. So I don't pin anything on Sells as such. Yes, again, the cross thing, I looked last season, the Liverpool goal, where they score at the back post and things like that. And there was frustrations there already. But I just think the more they adapt to the new manager, the more they get used to him, the more they believe in him. And it seems They are, hopefully that Bournemouth first half, which I was fuming about as well, and even as you know, I kind of went for Gibbs White a little bit in the sense that I thought it was his worst game for Forest, and I've defended absolutely everything he's done. But it just felt yesterday, led by the captain, led by the role model, Ryan Yates. It's what we did. Look, when Sangare came on the pitch, he got nutmegged and we nearly conceded.
First touch.
Within seconds. And again, it's just that application. He puts his. He doesn't always play on the front foot, but he gets the rest of the team somehow. When he steps onto the pitch, gets us playing on the front foot, and I felt that's where we could have and should have won the game, but it didn't transpire like that.
Let's talk about Savania, because since he's come to Forest, I thought when he came on against Arsenal, I thought he played very well, and I think he's getting better and better. We know we got to come back, but I'll ask you, Glenn. I thought he took his goal good, but I think his whole performance yesterday against who played left wing for United,
Darlow
as well. I thought he played fantastic, Glenn. But what's your opinion on him as well? People in the chat, what do you think about him as well, Glenn?
Yeah, first time I've seen him obviously get himself in a position where he could have scored, and right place, right time, right? Generally, though, as a defender, I wasn't overly impressed, particularly the first game or two that I saw. Brentford, he looked like he was rabbit in headlights a little bit, sort of getting up to speed. Now, to a certain extent, you allow that, don't you? Because you've come from a league that's not the Premier League in terms of Italy, and you come into a club that you're the only Italian and your English is okay, but you're picking up those cues, and you're obviously replacing a player that's one of, if not the players of the season for us in defence last year in terms of Aina. So you got big shoes to fill. You then put him in a position where Aina would have pinged the ball across, and he can't. Obviously, the biggest issue for me, and something that I've seen in terms of them, the two decisions that he's got there, whether he plays lateral and plays a ball in to Anderson or someone similar, or crosses, and his crossing is certainly something that he needs to improve on. And had he been in a position, I totally echo what Des is saying, put in a position where we might have put some balls in or around the edge of the 6-yard box there, we might have got some more out of that yesterday. But as a defender who is in as cover, and as a defender who's now playing more Premier League games than perhaps he might have expected to play at this stage with Aina when he was signed fit and not on international duty with Nigeria. He's impressed me a lot more in the last sort of 3 or 4 games. And it's great to see that, like I said, he's getting himself in those positions where he can sort of pounce on those flick-ons. And I think he took that goal quite well. I think there's every chance that a player in that position snatches at it and you can catch it in the upper Trent end door. But it's a well taken goal. And I wish that that we get more and more positions like that where we can pick up goals that 2 or 3 minutes after the first goal went in certainly was it echoes for me of first season in the Premier League, maybe a bit of the second season where we go one behind, or the opposition equalise and then they score a second goal within 2 or 3 minutes. And I think that was a really good time to score, obviously straight after Gibbs White's header. And I think he's, like I said, he's an improving player that's got arguably a lot more to play in terms of Europa League when, and hopefully if soon Aina comes back and he looks like he's back on the grass taking photographs and seems to be getting back in the training setup. So hopefully he'll be back and a bit more featuring as the FA Cup starts to kick off and we've got that extra element to add in. But no, over the last week, certainly before Bournemouth, I was impressed with the way he's transitioned into the Premier League, and by all accounts, yesterday was his best performance. Not even because of the goal, actually. I think he played really well and defended really well. But the goal certainly put the cherry on the cake for us.
Before I get Steve, the chat, everyone had a little debate. I'm loving it. Just be nice to each other. Like, everyone's got their opinion on all that. So yeah, just be nice. Just be nice. Like I can see Kevin. Like he's not a fan of Yatesy, and that's all good. But yeah, people, it's all right. Just be kind and don't fall out. That's all I'm going to say. Let's talk about another player. Even Steve, Des can answer this. Dan O'Doy, because he's been given lots of criticism for quite a while. I'll ask you, Steve, and I'll get Des in this. Steve, what do you think about Dan O'Doy? Do you think he's rightfully getting criticised, or do you think he needs to, he's playing good? Do you think he deserves all the criticism?
He's shown glimpses, haven't he? And I mean, the first game he scored a goal and he got an assist, didn't he, against Brentford, and then we all thought we signed a superstar here, and then the novelty wore off quite quick, and then he hasn't really hit the heights perhaps we have expected. I think he needs to work on his gym work a bit. I think he's a bit lightweight in some aspects. He gets brushed off the ball a little bit easy for my liking. But that being said, I thought yesterday he was right in the first half. Second half, I thought he might have been taken off. I thought he's starting to flag a bit. I thought it was called out for maybe like a Hutchison or someone on that side to come on, bit of pace, get at them. I mean, like Des touched on, their back line is shocking. You know, we definitely should have targeted them more at the back. We got plenty of pace in around the team. But yeah, I think it's hard to judge. There's a player in there, Ben. I mean, you know, with stats for Switzerland, they're brilliant, you know, especially international break. You know, every time you look at him when they're playing, he's either going to assist or a goal. So there's a player.
He plays brilliant for Switzerland, don't he?
Yeah, and that's another step up again. I know sometimes we play like bum teams, but it's still a higher level of football. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to judge. I mean, I like to see more of Bakwa. I think there's a player there as well, but he just can't seem to get going either. I don't know, Ben. It's hard. I don't know what you guys think, but for me, I think he's been a 6 out of 10 so far. He started well. He petered off. He had a good game against. I felt he was good against Porto. He was good against them. But yeah, for me, I think it's gonna take him a while to catch up with the physicality of the Premier League. Like I say, I think he's a little bit too lightweight for me at the moment. He's got pace, but I think
I agree.
Yeah, go on.
I agree, and I think that he ultimately is very similar to what I was saying about Savona and Aino. He's got big shoes to fill in terms of who did we buy him to replace?
Elanga,
What to replace Elanga, and Elanga has, had certain periods of the time, and the reason why we got him for what we got him from Manchester United is that he had an inconsistent time there, and when he was on it, he was absolutely sensational. And when Dan O'Doy is on it, he's been absolutely sensational. And there's situations where, over the last sort of 3 or 4 games I've seen, he's come on as a bit of a cameo role, gotten involved in certain situations. But like you said, Steve, he's not been as consistent as perhaps we would have liked, based on first impressions, where we saw him come on and absolutely set fire to the Premier League in terms of the goal. And he took that header really well, didn't he? And the forward play, the attacking play, really put him crosses in that he didn't really get involved with and couldn't do a lot. I think it was doubled up on quite a lot yesterday, and they didn't really give him a lot of space and time to put those crosses in. But there's certainly a player there, and I think there's a player. I'm going to steal Des as a horse for a course. I think there's a situation where when we do play 2 out wide, he's the best option that we've got in that situation. Although it was really good to see that it meant that they were switching over, just as Elanga and Hudson-Odoi were last season and the season before. And it meant that Hudson-Odoi was coming a lot more central, where he eventually got the 2 or 3 better chances in the second half. I'm still holding out for a player coming out there, but I think there's certainly work that needs to be done, and no doubt you've hit the nail on the head there, Steve, in terms of the things that he can do in terms of short term to improve that. The the one thing that I've seen, and social media may have suggested this more than anything else, that Igor Jesus seems to, his standing leap and his head, although he's not as tall as Taiwo, is he? That he's certainly the focus for lots of goal kicks in that situation, and he's working a lot in the gym to create that vertical height and give himself a bit more of a bulk. No doubt, that's what Dan and Dore needs to do as well. And there's certainly a player in there, and I'd like to think that with that increase in playing with those players and a bit more consistent, they'll get what he wants out of him there with the pace and the cross and getting in that situation where you might pick up a cross from the other side and head just as he did against Brentford.
The one thing I will say for Ndoye, though, which he does more than Hudson-Odoi, he does track back more, I find anyway. I think he does help out his full-back more. And that maybe stems from playing Italian football, which is very defensive oriented. You've got to be disciplined, you've got to work back. So I think we'll give him credit for that. Ndoye, he does work back. So I'd be interested to see when Aina comes back, how he links up with him, playing down that side. I know that's harsh on Savona, because who's to say that Aina's goes straight back in the side? I know we all say, yeah, just chuck him straight back in, but I know we're lacking fullbacks at the moment. But if Savona keeps his form up, Aina's going to have to fight to get back in the side. That's just another debate. But that's,
you know what, let me phrase it. I'm going to ask Des, right? Because when you see people moan about Dan and Dore, but when you see players like, we know Back was injured, and Kel mentioned, I don't know how long Back was out for. You've got James McAtee, I think is a good player, can't get in the team. We get Omar Hutchinson, he's getting big, but he's not getting much game time. And do you think it's a bit, I don't know, do you think the same, like Omar Hutchinson, he's not even in the Europa team. Do you think he should have got a chance yesterday, Des? Because I feel when he came on against, was it Bournemouth, he come on and he did his bit, but he still can't get a chance in the team.
Yeah, I think the problem is all the players you're talking about, Dan and Dore, Hutchinson, Bakwa, have just been extremely inconsistent so far, and none of them have really set the world on fire. The one thing you have got from Dan and Dore, and I totally agree with the guys in terms of his lightness and and it drifts in and out of games and all those things. I agree with the negatives basically, because I get frustrated with him myself. But the one thing that he has done compared to the others, he scored and set up goals. Not many, but we haven't scored that many. But he has been involved. He has had goal involvements, which, when you're looking at the inconsistent players he's competing with a place with, he's the one who's got some numbers to back it up. Yes, we would like to see him play consistently better over 90 minutes. We would like to see him stronger on the ball, running at teams, getting the ball in early. But for me, again, it comes down to tactics and that old thing we keep saying in this episode as much as ever, a horse for a course. In the sense
you two love them words, don't you, Glenn?
But football's like that sometimes, the real where I think he's better is against the back four, bizarrely. When he's got someone one-on-one against him, he knows what he's dealing with. He can kick the ball on and get round his man and get a ball in. It tends to work so much better. When it's this kind of like Man United, where they've got Dalot and people on this almost like a rotational system, and then they've got a left centre-back coming over as well, it seems to get lost in two worlds. When he's got that man against him, I think he's shown it against Crystal Palace second half, where he can go at somebody. He kind of knows what he's got to do. And it's a little bit of indecision at times and a little bit of inconsistency, as we keep saying, where he really struggles. I'd like to see him play in the team with Aina, because we know Aina will take a lot of pressure off him defensively. Yes, he'll have to do his bit. And just for the record, Aina walks back into the team. Savona's done okay. But Aina walks back into this team because the loss of him is as crucial as any player, and in what's happened this season. Him not being there, I think we could lose anybody else, and not have been affected as much. We know, rightly or wrongly, Nuno was upset over fullback situations and wide players, but when Aina plays with Ndoye, it takes the pressure off him defensively, but it also takes the pressure off him offensively, because you're going to have a player there who's really, really comfortable going forward. Yes, Savona's done well, and he's getting better. Like you say, best game for Forest yesterday. But he's not as comfortable on the ball. He's not as decisive as Aina in what he's going to do. He's still young. He's still learning. It's not a criticism. But when you've got Aina there, who's somebody who's really comfortable carrying the ball forward, if you noticed, 3 or 4 times in the first half, Dice was fuming with Savona, for going backwards, stepping backwards, when he wanted him to drive forward down the line. And that's the difference, what you get. But when you've got Aina driving forward without a second thought, all of a sudden the fullback and the winger of the opposition is starting to worry about Aina and switching off from Ndoye. So he's getting an extra yard on the ball, an extra second on the ball. He's getting an extra yard of space. And I think that's where, when things settle down, when the team is as we believe it should be, and when Dice has implemented all his ideas and idealisms, you might start to see people like Dan Ndoye flourish, because he knows exactly what's around him. Look, the problem with Forest season full stop has been pinning down a team, whether it's Murillo not playing or Nico Williams, who's been brilliant, switching side to side. Football's all about partnerships, and what Dan Ndoye's not had really much time to build is a partnership with a fullback. Because it's been a different player. He's been a little bit in and out of the team himself. The midfield's changed over. This injury to Douglas Luiz is not every 2 minutes. Is not helping anyone really. So it just needs to settle down. And again, not all of those players, and most of them haven't, to be honest, are going to hit the ground running. We like Glenn said. I've said it for 2 years. When we signed Hudson-Odoi and when we signed Ilanga, we were signing raw talents. They just happened to be inconsistent raw talents that all clicked together. Because Nuno found a formation and a setup where they could all play and they could all thrive. And at the moment, there's been so much chopping and changing. Different style. Went from one style to another to almost something similar to the old one. But these players that weren't all part of the old one, they only had 1 or 2 games. And of course, it worked so well against Brentford and didn't work against West Ham. So I just think, look, I can't be hard on Dan Ndoye, although I do get frustrated with him. I was frustrated yesterday, just thinking, just be stronger, hit the line, take the man on, get the ball in. As I said earlier, we needed to ping those crosses in, and those kind of things. But it's too early, to really sort of lay into these players, because there's no one pushing him hard enough. You asked me the question, Dore, about Amari Hutchinson. Yes, he's shown little cameos of doing okay. Swansea.
What about McAtee? McAtee's not going to sniff.
But that's not one manager, is it? There's something. I tend to feel there's something amiss there, or he's been injured, or whatever. There's something not quite right, because it's not one manager now. He's come in under Nuno, possibly not a Nuno signing, didn't give him a sniff. Postecoglou, he didn't have a sniff. Dice, he's not featured yet as well. I don't know is the answer to that one. But what I do know is he's not pushing. Neither is Hutchinson. Neither is Backward. They're not pushing hard enough to dislodge Ndoye, who's actually got some numbers to back up the little bit of good Forest have done. And just before you said that about McAtee, Hutchinson, he's had little cameos. Swansea, last week against Bournemouth, he did okay. but he's not doing it consistently well, and he's not doing anything in those games to contribute to goals and to make a difference in the scoreline. And that's the fact of the matter with all those players lining up behind Ndoye at the moment.
Mm.
Can I just say for the record, sorry Ben, can I just say for the record, Des, I 100% agree with you that Aina walks into that side. But my point I was trying to make was, you got to, if say for example, if Savona plays really well up until he comes back, if you were to drop him, that's where the man management comes in. Because if he's playing really well and Dyche goes, right, you're dropped now, Aina just goes straight back into the side, Savona would have to be in that position to go understand that, right, okay, I've played my part, I'm now back on the bench. That's the only point I was going to make. I agree with you, Des. Aina walks back in the side. His personality alone gets back in the side.
Yeah, and
But
in an ideal situation, Steve, in an ideal situation, that's how it works.
Yeah.
But Forest are in a very unideal situation at the moment. I totally agree with you. You know, you'd like to think that if this,
you've got to think, how would that do with his confidence? That's what I'm just saying. Savona's, for example, because he could play for the next, say Aina's back beginning of December, for the next 4 games, he could have 8 out of 10 performances, and then Aina just walks straight back in the side. That's what he point out trying to make.
Surely no, but
I totally agree. And if the team was doing well and winning football matches, that's where that situation is ideal. Aina doesn't walk straight back in the team, you know. But right now, we need fine margins. We need every edge we can get, you know, to make us that little bit better. And I think, look, the reason I say that about Aina as much as anyone is it's not a slant on Savona, and I totally get the confidence and man management thing. But I just feel Aina missing, full stop, regardless of who's taking his position, is possibly the worst loss we could have had. It sounds bizarre for a fullback, you know, but he's that integral to the team. We know his impact off the pitch, but even on the pitch, you know, it's like what I was saying about Yates when there's an extra, when he comes on the pitch and there's that little bit of energy. When Aina's out there on the pitch, there's that bit of energy, a lot of energy, you know, and there's the I5 and there's the little trick that gets us on the front foot. And I felt for Postecoglou to some degree that the one player he did not need to lose,
you know,
was Aina, because he's a player who can take the ball forward whilst Nico Williams can do it on the other side. The two of them have to be in the team working like that. Otherwise, it all gets confusing who plays where. Zinchenko, you know, Savona, players trying to sort of fit in, and then Nico being a bit inconsistent. So for me, he's the only one where I say, right now, he would walk back in the team. Anyone else injured and someone else playing well in that position, but Forest are in, I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but they're in a dire situation right now.
That's the next one before we do the next subject. No, you know what? Before we do, we'll talk about it, but people in the chat, who's your man of the match before we do talk about that? We'll start with you, Steve. Who's your man of the match today?
The choice is 3. The 2 fullbacks, so Anderson. I'm gonna give it to Savona. I'm Savona fanboy tonight.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be on the Savona. Yeah, I just felt with the goal, the team, it meant a lot as well to him. You could tell, players got around him, and just after the goal, he put one hell of a tackle on the far side, and who was up against, but he just won the ball clean, and even the crowd got on their feet just from a tackle as well, and that's going to help his confidence as well. A big shout out to Nico Williams again.
He's Welsh, that's why you're doing that.
I'm not just saying it because he's Welsh, Ben.
Yeah, whatever.
He is probably.
I was waiting for Nico Williams.
He is the only player who's averaging 7 or 8 out of 10 every game. He is. I don't care what anyone says. And he kept. Another dog barking.
Liar.
He kept Mbumo quiet because Mbumo had to come inside and come off his flank. He had no change out of Nico. So Anderson again, brilliant, but for me, I'm going to give it to Savona.
Glenn?
Nico played fantastically well. Anderson was all over the place, and is quite rightly the heartbeat of that midfield. I'm going to go slightly obscure and give it to Murillo, based only on the clearance off the line that was the difference between us getting a point or not, and those fine margins I'm going to talk about again, and give it to Murillo for that one point. Although Nico was fantastic and Savona was, like I said, that was his best performance. But I'm going to go Murillo.
Des?
I don't know. It's a really, really hard one, actually. I totally get Savona. Best game for Forest. I thought Gibbs White had a good game. Let's not underestimate his performance. He gets a lot of flack when it's not going right, but he's still integral to everything. He's still at the heart of everything. I thought Douglas Luiz was excellent for 20 minutes, but unfortunately we're not getting much more than 20 minutes right now. And Nico, the one I kind of came away from the game thinking it was Nico, and
he's been fantastic. He has, really has.
It's just the level of consistency we need right now. And again, going back to my last point about Aina, you know what you get in every week. Savona was still a bit hit and miss. You know what you get from Milenkovic, you know what you get from Sells, and most of the players, you know what you get from Anderson and Gibbs White. I thought Anderson was good, but again, he's good all the time. I felt we dominated that midfield without being at our absolute best. But for me, I think Nico edged it. There was parts of the game also where a bit frustrated with Hudson-Odoi in the first half, but I thought second half it was excellent. So it was just one of those. And I think whilst watching a Dice team over the weeks, you'll probably struggle to pick an out-and-out man of the match because it'll be about team, and work and digging in. And we've shown some of that yesterday. We've shown some of those qualities that we expect the manager's going to instill, and that can only be positive signs going forward.
People, we need an hour, so I'm trying. We'll forget about the relegation. That's a different video. And now, we've got, as you know, we've got Stern Graz on Thursday. Me and the Des Oldham are going on a second European tour. As well, people in the chat, if you're going to Graz, put the thumbs up. And that, again, we're struggling in the Premier League, but as you know, Spurs won it. Do you think, I'm ask anyone who wants to answer this, if we get a result in Stern Graz, do you think we can win it? We'll ask you, Glenn. Can we win it if we get a decent result at Stern Graz? You're mute, Glenn. You're mute. Glenn, you're mute.
Sorry, I'll start again. The fan on my laptop, I don't know why, is sounds like a 747 taking off. So I'm sorry. I'll start again. Absolutely, I'll try and say absolutely. Why not? Seeing the way that the two finalists eventually went to the final, it wasn't a smooth. In terms of Man U and Spurs last season getting into the final, it wasn't as smooth as some perhaps might see, and from time to time you do get those situations where I agree with that.
Wait.
No. The Yates
this one
from Kate.
Oh yeah. Okay,
That one.
Yeah, that one. Okay.
So it's not a straightforward kind of progression all the way through the competition. There's banana skins and times where you have sort of difficult times, and we've shown already, particularly the home game, that we are putting some of our best performances together in terms of the Europa League, and there's every chance that if we continue to balance the requirements of the Premier League, and also I may not be on the show that you talk about the situation we're in. If we start picking up a few more points in the Premier League and start bringing that gap to 16th, 17th, 16th, 17th back into our area, there's a 4-point gap at the moment, isn't there? then there's every chance that with a little bit of consistency there, that we might start putting ourselves in a position where, what are we, 15th in the Europa League at the moment?
Yeah.
We carry on picking up some more points. And certainly looking at the table, there's teams below us in that league that we've now got to face. So yeah, I'm going to be unfortunately not attending any of those away games like you guys.
Oh, Glenn, you need to, man. You need to.
I know, and I've actually just commented, say I'm not going. Unfortunately, so thumbs up if you are. I'm not attending any of the away games. Although there's a precedent in terms of the school that I work at in South London that Brighton fans in the last sort of 5 years have managed to get away to European games midweek. So there's every chance. Sorry, I'm making you yawn, Dore. There's every chance that I might be able to get to one.
I'm happy with you with it.
Ticketless, and getting myself over there. Let's see. But I'm going to be sitting, listening to Fletch commentate on it, and cheering the roof off my 3-bed semi.
I'll say, well, Steve, I've no point asking about Steve because I've been to Wales as well, so there's no point asking him on all that. Steve, can we do it, Steve? Like, I was talking to a friend today, and he's saying like we're playing Portland in the Premier League. The Porto result it gives a massive lift. Can we? Am I getting too excited? Because we're going to stay in grass. Me and Des are going to stay in grass. It's amazing.
I've never known a season like it, Ben, where it's unique in a sense that it feels like yin and yang. Because we come to Thursday now and we'll be like wrapped up in the whole you and Des are going, great experience and all that. And I'd be watching on TV and it'd be like, the whole European thing again and within Europe. And then that game on Sunday is massive. If you had to ask me now, I would take the 3 points on Sunday and lose on Thursday. You'd have to, because I know you guys are going. I wouldn't want you to waste your trip. But this is why I said in the group chat, I would make changes on Thursday. And the predicament we're in, I know it's not the chat, I know it's not the video you want to talk about, Ben, it's not the video, but the predicament we're in, we can't afford key players more injuries. And this is why, I don't know what level Sturmgratz are.
Steve, would you rest play for Sturmgratz then?
100%. And you will shoot me down for that? 100% they would, Ben.
You will shoot him down. Shoot him down.
Shoot me down. Throw bullets at me. I don't care. Of course they would. You've got to look at Leeds on Sunday. We've got to beat Leeds. We've got to beat them. I know it's early, but look at the gap that could. And Jen just touched on it now. We got to start pulling teams back into us because the fixture list next weekend. West Ham are playing Burnley. Fulham are playing. I forgot who they're playing.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean. We got this is why, and we touched on the players who try to prove a point. Put them in on Thursday and make them prove a point. Then earn their spot. Make them think. Make Dice think. Oh, I got players now I can put in if I can rely on them. I wouldn't make 11 changes. I'm not going that far, but I definitely would put Morato in for Murillo. Maybe put McAtee in instead of Gibbs White. I would put maybe Taiwo instead of Jesus. So 100%. I would definitely. Nico Williams needs a rest. Otherwise, he's going to burn out. He's going to have to play every day.
He's talking too much now. You're talking too. You like Desmond talking too much about. You might as well take the over 18s to play against this.
Then I would play Big John in goals.
Do you agree with him? I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't want to agree or disagree with Steve. I've got my own opinion, but the fact, look, for me, the best thing Forest can do on Thursday, and I do expect there'll be changes, but I don't want there to be, because yes, I get the thing about injuries, but you can get injured in training. You can get injured picking the cat up off the floor. Your back can go. For me.
How's the cat going to do this?
For me, the best thing this team could have going into Leeds is a good win under the belt. And that means the 11 that are going to play. Yes, I get the thing about rest. I get the thing about how football is these days. But it's still early in the season. They've had a pre-season. they've had a week off this week, and ultimately when they play, they don't train because they're still running around doing stuff. Yes, it's not at the intensity and at the same level. I totally appreciate that, but I think the win, the win can't be underestimated. You know, another W taken into the Leeds game rather than a draw. Yes, it's a good draw. Don't get me wrong in many ways, but the confidence of Winsbury, a comfortable victory in Graz, which we should get. You know, we should get a comfortable victory, and I'm not saying we will because it happened against Midtjylland. I'm not saying we're just going to go and roll these teams over, but the reality is we should beat Graz regardless of the team and whoever. But I'd like to see the team that Dyche thinks is his team, you know, he's starting 11, go out there, get a good win, 2-3, 4-0. You know, again, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if they did, you know, if it went to form book in the sense that the Premier League's a lot better than the Austrian League, you know, that for me is more important right now to take into Leeds. Yes, you always run the risk, you know, of players getting injured, but we spoke about it today. We're speaking about inconsistent players, you know. So if Ndoye went down, for example, or Hudson Ndoye, there are players to step in, you know, and that's where the old adage with Cooper, next man up, you know. But until the point where it is next man up, we've got to start thinking about winning football matches and the importance of what that does. Look, another 3 points in the Europa League this week is going to fly us up that table. You know, and you asked the question, the initial question before, should we win on Thursday and all that was, can we win? Can we win the competition? I don't even think we need to start thinking about that. All we need to do is start winning football matches, and then the whole thing picks up momentum. We know this Forest team is capable of winning the Europa League when they play well and when they're in form. Right now, they're probably not capable of winning the Europa League because they're not consistent enough to win enough matches. I think they'll get through the group stages without too much issue. When you look at the remaining fixtures, there's not that much there. Do you know? And again, I'm not counting my chickens because every team's going to come and do what Midtjylland did and play to their strengths against us. But when you look at it over a period of time, we should win more of those games than we lose. You know, and it doesn't take much. You only have to get into the top 24 or 32, don't you? You know, to get into the next next stage.
In the top eight go through. Then there's a playoff, isn't there?
So then there's a playoff from 8 to is it 8 to 24?
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Spurs.
So really,
Spurs
to have a chance at getting through, you only really need to win like a few games. It's not that hard to qualify. We have picked up 4 from 4 with potentially our toughest.
Midtjylland are top, aren't they? Midtjylland are top of the league. Midtjylland are.
Yeah, I'm lost.
Yeah,
Steve, would you then suggest that once you've qualified with games in hand in the league rate, you then start resting players, just like Liverpool, just like Spurs did?
Yeah,
because Deji added Demola, a lad I taught who played for Spurs, scored in the sort of 80th minute for Spurs, and has not really featured. But that's when you start putting your under 18s.
Yeah, that's when. Yeah. But my point being is that yes, go on, Des.
So that's when you've achieved something and the team's starting to get a momentum going. So if you've already qualified, that's where then you bring in the second 11s. Make sure everybody's rotating. You're giving somebody a break. So when they are banging form, they're not picking up injuries. Because you do need them for the weekend. Yes, I totally agree with Steve. Look, Leeds is far more important right now than Sturm Graz. But I think Sturm Graz is important in the sense that it can build confidence and momentum. There's nothing better for going into a game than have won the last game. It doesn't matter. And I was going to say it doesn't matter who's on the pitch, but it does matter who's on the pitch because some of these players have just struggled for a bit of consistency. So again, another 90 minutes. Yes, it's a quick turnaround. But I'm sure the players, if the same team as started yesterday or was near as, maybe 1 or 2 injuries, I'm sure they'd want to start in Graz and then they'd want to start against Leeds, knowing that they've done well. I just think we're still a bit early to be worrying too much. And I remember the thing about the Europa League and the competition. I remember Brighton did really well after initially not really. They didn't adjust to it. I think they lost the first two games, and I think they were struggling in the third against Ajax and ended up winning 4-2 or something like that. But they didn't. And this was always going to be the thing going into this season. I think Forest can only win the competition if they climb away from the relegation zone. That's my quick and short answer, because it all goes hand in hand. Winning football matches becomes a habit, as we saw last season. But unfortunately, so does losing football matches, and that's why we lost to Midtjylland, and got turned over, because we was in that kind of mindset. And what worries me in terms of team selection, I do think Dyche might change it based on what happened against Bournemouth, the difference between Porto and Bournemouth. But what worries me is I think the season kind of really, Postecoglou's reign and the season really went off the rails a little bit when he picked the wrong team against Sunderland.
Yeah,
it was the lack of sort of respect for Sunderland, for the Premier League, and for the fact that we actually needed to win that game as well. And I think that's where the season took a turn for the worse. Despite the League Cup, despite Arsenal, I think that's when it started to set in that we're in a bit of a dogfight. And I got some flack for having a go at Ange over that, but ultimately look where we are now. And we've not scored a goal until yesterday in the league.
yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, it's really important. Look, I get what Steve says. I totally agree in that sense. And I think that's what might happen. I do think that's what Dyche will do, because against Bournemouth, we struggled, didn't we? A couple of days after such a big performance, everyone was on a high. So I do think there'll be a bit of rest in it, and maybe one or two. I totally agree with Taiwo going in. I think it's a perfect game for Taiwo to go in, and play some time. But I wouldn't make wholesale changes, because I don't think we're at that point in the season yet.
Mm.
No, I think it's just. I think it's just utilizing the big squad we have now, isn't it? That's what my point being. I mean, it's all we all said before the season started. We need a bit of a more bloated squad. I think because we have it now, is to use what we have. And look, if we sign these players on merit, then they are clearly good enough to play at this level. So put them in. And I'm not saying make 11 changes. I'm not, but I think there are key. And there's, like you said about Aina, there are key players we cannot afford to lose at this present time. And we've already said some players. I mean, Nico is just one example. I mean, he could end up playing nearly every game this season, including Europa League. It's just mental,
You love mentioning Nico Williams, don't you? We know he's
no, not at all.
We know he's fantastic.
Nico is one who could probably do that. Again.
Yeah, but then you've got another thing. He's got an international break coming up. He's going to play in that as well. So that's creeping up on the horizon again. I mean, we have so bad luck with injuries through international break.
But the
it's
reality
just
moment, I totally get it. But the reality is, any player, has played this season probably 16, 17 games. At this point, if they're an international, they've probably played about 17 games this season if they've played every game for Forest. So, yes, I get it. I totally understand how important it is, but they shouldn't be knackered yet. Yes, it's a quick turnaround, but look, they travel in luxury.
yeah.
And all these things.
This sounds a bit like Martin Keown and Simon Jordan on top.
Yeah, that is true. Though. That is true.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I agree, Des. They do earn stupid money and I agree with you. But what I'm just saying is the basis of the squad. I think if we just put little changes in, they wouldn't make a massive difference.
Subtle changes. That's all. Subtle changes.
Yeah.
Taiwo for Jesus. Maybe
Morocco for Murillo. Yeah.
Yeah. Subtle changes, and then because again, Murillo's not. He don't look massively fit. It's what if you think back, it's what Cooper used to do in the cup games, wasn't it? You know, he had his first choice, and then he'd drop the Scottish guy at the back. You know, I can't think of his name right now. Yeah, McKenna. He'd drop McKenna in, you know, for a game, or he'd drop like whoever, you know, just somebody at fullback or something like that. Just subtle changes, so it didn't really upset the momentum and the flow of the season.
Right, people want to get going. We've done over the hour. It's been a great show. Like I said, me and Des will be there in Graz. We'll be doing the usual vlog. Des, are you doing your vlog, Des? And that.
I'll see. I'll do
I hate that word you say. It's either yes or no. That's what I'm saying. You need to do one. Like, it's good. We're on this European trip. I don't want to sorry, Glenn. I don't want to rub it in, but it's just the best way to it was just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Look, the point I made at the end of all my socials yesterday was we got a good result against Man United. Now let's have some fun. You know, it gives everybody the chance to breathe a little bit. I just spoke about subtle changes. You know, subtle changes in mindset of, yes, look, this is Graz. 7 out of 10 times we'd probably beat them. Let's make sure we go and do one of those 7.
Yeah.
You know, and we beat them. But then it gives
the big teams. We've gone past the big teams, so no disrespect to Graz and that.
It gives us all a chance to breathe, including the players, the manager. You know, let's just have a bit of fun with it. And yes, it's not going to be fun if we don't win. But we've got to realise what the bigger picture is in everything as well. Europe is, look, we've done it, especially Dore, as people who are going to go. We've got 4 games to go out and enjoy and you know and make the most of, and we got 4 at home for the people that can travel to those. You know, so there's 8 games here that we never have, and at the end of the day, being a football fan is all it's just about watching games and watching your team win. It doesn't. It does matter if it's it doesn't matter as much if it's a friendly, but you still want your team to score goals and win. That's what watching football is. So again, this gives us all a great opportunity, including the players, you know, to see it as a bit of light relief. You know, they'll still take it deadly serious, but a bit of light relief, and it can only be positive if we take a win into Leeds.
Definitely. Right, it's been a great show, people. Thank you to Des, Glenn, and Stephen. Like I said, make sure everyone follows and ever shoots commercials. As well to Dylan as well. I can't forget Dylan. He's in there as a DoreOntour mascot. So shout out to Dylan. I know he can't hear me and all that. So he's back to school tomorrow, isn't he? Is he back to school tomorrow?
He is, yeah. Yeah, he's back tomorrow.
Back to school, so he needs to get into bed. Get into bed because he's
I'm going to get into bed now.
Get to bed. Thank you to everyone who's watched, listened to myself, Glenn and Steve, and Des Rabbit on as well. Bless the people. I'm going to ask Dave if we can do a podcast in Austria on maybe on a Wednesday, so we just get the feeling on what's it like. So, see, Dave, you watch me do the podcast in Austria, yeah. But yeah, people, it's been a great show. Before you do leave, do a massive favor for me. Please do hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and if you disagree with everything that Des says, please get in the comment section now, because I know everyone agrees with Des. Every time someone says to me, I like Des what Des says, and I don't. I hate what Des says. But yeah, it's been a great show, people. But yeah, like I said, people, I'll see you in Austria. Me and Des will be there. I'll do a review show maybe Friday. I'm back Friday night, and make sure you watch the vlog, everything. Make sure you watch Des's before and after reaction. Des, good news, Des. There's Wi-Fi in the Austria stadium. Just want to tell you that.
Great.
Just want to tell you that.
Sold.
Sold. Right, people, it's been a pleasure. Peace and love up the bloody forest.